It's what you make it. If you don't do anything, nothing will happen. There is nothing to escape from. You have to create your own reality here.
Dolph Lundgren blew up worldwide as Ivan Drago in Rocky IV, the cold, unstoppable machine everyone remembers. But behind that legendary moment were 5 faces who ticked him off so badly he promised he'd never stand next to them on camera again. At 68, he finally admitted these people used to be his co-workers and even his friends, until they flipped on him, challenged him to fights at Cannes, shoved him out of final edits, and tried to embarrass him in public. And when you hear who they are, the size of these names will shock you. Jean-Claude Van Damme tops the list, easily the biggest name on Dolph's personal blacklist. The first name on Dolph Lundgren's hate list is also the loudest one, Jean-Claude Van Damme, the guy whose rivalry with Dolph turned into Hollywood folklore before either one could admit it. And if you think this beef was just 2 action stars bumping heads, wait until you hear how wild things really got behind those studio walls. Everything exploded during Universal Soldier in 1992. Producers were convinced that pairing the Belgian high-kicking superstar with the Swedish powerhouse would print money, but the crew figured out fast. They were basically chaperoning 2 live wires who refused to chill. Lundgren showed up locked in, uniform sharp, lines tight, attitude disciplined, ready to work like it was a real mission. Van Damme, though, rolled in like he ran the whole set, switching scenes without warning, demanding retakes just so he could throw another dramatic kick, and insisting the lighting be adjusted so he'd look more heroic every single time. One crew member told French press years later, "Every day felt like watching 2 lions stare across a field, and everyone knew exactly what that meant." Then came the infamous Cannes moment, the one that locked in their hatred forever. In front of a crowd of reporters, Van Damme stepped up to Dolph and said something that froze the entire room. He told him to come outside and finish it, and people were convinced it had to be a stunt. But it wasn't. Dolph later told a Swedish magazine privately, "If I'd said yes, it wouldn't have ended well for anybody." And every fan understood who he meant. Decades later, during The Expendables 2, the same tension still buzzed between them like it never left. Van Damme kept trying to push creative tweaks, but Dolph just shut it out and moved on like nothing was said. They stood shoulder to shoulder on set, yet never shared even a basic conversation, not a single chill moment between them. And here's the twist. When someone asked Dolph in 2018 whether he'd ever team up with Van Damme again, he didn't even blink. He just said, "Why? What's left to prove?" And that one line showed exactly why the tension never faded. And that feud stayed frozen because neither one ever backed down, not once. Steven Seagal enters the chat with an on-set ego clash so heavy that Dolph walked away before it even started. If you thought the first rivalry was wild, wait until you hear the second name on Dolph's blacklist, Steven Seagal. People love to joke about Seagal's ego, but Dolph didn't laugh. He survived it. The first time they met, Dolph walked out thinking, "I can't believe this guy is real." It happened during a private meeting for a possible action movie, and everyone expected a normal table read. Instead, Seagal walked in wearing sunglasses, with a bodyguard behind him, and the kind of energy you'd expect from someone who thought he invented every move in martial arts history. Before anybody could even sit, he stared straight at Dolph and dropped the line, "You should know I'm the top fighter here." That was his version of hello, and it caught everyone off guard. Dolph wasn't mad. He was just trying to figure out what kind of intro he had just heard. Then Seagal followed it up with another one. "I don't take hits on camera ever." At that moment, Dolph knew exactly what type of meeting this was becoming. As the talks went on, Seagal kept hyping himself like he was some unbeatable myth who never slipped, never fell, never lost. He even pushed for script changes so his character stayed flawless the whole movie. The producers tried to stay respectful, but Dolph could feel the second-hand embarrassment spreading through the room. One producer quietly whispered, He wants to be bulletproof, and Dolph knew this was heading nowhere. And the stories didn't end there either. Stunt performers warned Dolph that Seagal liked showing off techniques that actually hurt people, which only made the whole thing even messier. One stunt guy even showed up the next morning with a swollen wrist and said, "He said it builds character," and Dolph never let that moment fade from his memory. Years later, he broke down his feelings with one sharp line. "Discipline impresses me, pretending doesn't," and he meant every bit of it. After that first encounter, Dolph told his own team he'd walk off any job the second Seagal's name popped up. Studios tried to match them up more than once, but Dolph slammed every door shut without hesitation. That feud didn't burn out. It never even got the chance to start. Mickey Rourke enters next with the insult that flipped respect into straight-up tension. Imagine sitting at a table read and hearing Mickey Rourke, a guy Dolph respected, turn to him and say, "You are the muscle, I'm the mind." That single line cracked their working relationship right down the middle. Their issue didn't come from one giant blow-up, but from a pile of small, real-life hits on set during their early 2000s action thriller. The movie was filmed in Eastern Europe under freezing winter conditions, and the crew still talks about how Mickey's behavior threw entire shooting days off track. And here's how it actually went down. Mickey walked onto set carrying pages of handwritten monologues he wanted to force into scenes. Whole paragraphs about childhood trauma, Vietnam flashbacks, guilt, religion, none of which were anywhere in the script. Actors kept freezing up because they had no clue how to respond when he suddenly dropped new emotional tones in the middle of a take. Dolph's scenes became unpredictable since Mickey shifted the vibe every single time the camera rolled. One night, they had a tense two-man standoff scheduled for 10 p.m., but Mickey rolled in at 1:47 a.m., cigarette in his mouth, saying, "I needed to walk the city to get into character." The crew had been waiting the whole time, and Dolph stood on set in full costume for nearly 3 hours. That was the night Dolph snapped and told the first AD, if he leaves again, shoot without him. And then came the worst incident a week later. During a blocking rehearsal, Mickey shoved the script supervisor aside and yelled, "Don't tell me how to feel a scene," leaving everyone stunned and the tension higher than ever. "I feel it when it hits me." Then he turned toward Dolph, smirked, and added, "Some guys act from instinct, others just flex." That line landed like a slap, and everybody knew it wasn't playful. It was meant to put Dolph down. After the movie wrapped, Mickey bailed on the entire promotional tour, leaving Dolph to face every Mickey-related question alone, which only made the tension louder. And Mickey never apologized, never reached out, never even hinted at clearing the air. Dolph never claimed he hated him. He simply said, "We won't share a set again." And that was his final word on it. Tom Berenger steps in next, the actor who crossed a line Dolph never forgave. He became the fourth man on Dolph Lundgren's blacklist, and this time it wasn't about insults or clashing egos. It was something colder. Berenger tried to erase Dolph from his own movie, and that's the kind of move Dolph doesn't forget. Their conflict started in 2002 on a war action film shot in Slovakia, a tight schedule with a no-nonsense structure, exactly what Dolph expected. But Berenger walked in acting like the entire film needed to orbit around him, and from week one, he made that very clear. He started arriving with rewritten pages that magically expanded his speeches while slicing down Dolph's lines. The director kept trying to maintain balance, but the crew saw the pattern instantly. Day after day, Berenger pushed to reshape scenes, so the emotional weight landed only on him, and Dolph stayed quiet until one night in an abandoned steel factory pushed things too far. The scene was supposed to be clean and sharp, but Berenger refused to shoot unless he delivered some long dramatic moment he wrote for himself. His improvised speech dragged on for nearly 2 minutes and completely crushed the scene's tension. The whole script depended on precision, and Dolph finally stepped forward, looked straight at the director, and said, "He's hijacking the film." The room froze, and Berenger didn't fight back. He just turned around and walked straight to his trailer. The harshest hit came during post-production in Bratislava, when an editor quietly told Dolph's team that Berenger had requested several of Dolph's medium shots be removed. He also asked for Dolph's reaction close-ups to be cut down and pushed for extra inserts of Berenger's face during shared dialogue scenes. Berenger basically wanted the film to play like a solo character study, with Dolph fading out of the story. That crossed a line Dolph wasn't willing to ignore. He finished his ADR sessions, stepped out of the studio, and told his agent one sentence that said everything. "If Berenger signs a project, I'm not interested." He has never broken that rule since. Brian Thompson comes next, the quiet rival who turned a simple role into years of resentment. The last name on Dolph Lundgren's blacklist is Brian Thompson, and this one didn't start with a blow-up or a fight. It began with something slower and way more irritating. Years of slick comments, shady remarks, and a kind of disrespect that never felt accidental. Their tension stretches all the way back to Rocky IV. While Dolph was dealing with overnight fame as Ivan Drago, Thompson was out in casting circles telling people he had been considered for the same role and would have brought more depth to it. At first, Dolph let it slide as typical Hollywood chatter, but Thompson kept pushing the same angle, and it started to wear thin. Every time they ended up at the same event, Thompson found a way to slip in little jabs. At one industry mixer, after a discussion about iconic villains, he casually said, within Dolph's hearing, "Some roles are written flat. The actor can only do so much." Everyone around them knew exactly who he was aiming at, and even though it was petty, it hit in a way that sticks with you. Things finally escalated during a table read in the early 90s for an action movie. Thompson pushed back on every line he thought made him look weaker than Dolph's character, starting arguments over moments that weren't even that deep. During rehearsal, after cutting Dolph off twice to complain about blocking, he smirked and said, "Let's not make this look like a weightlifting contest." That line landed harder than any punch could, and Dolph didn't forget it. The breaking point came at a Las Vegas Fan Expo in the 2010s. During a Q&A, Thompson mocked the legendary "I must break you" line, telling the crowd, "I'd have delivered it with actual feeling." The audience laughed, and Dolph heard about the moment almost instantly. He skipped his panel that afternoon and switched to private signings instead, something he had never done before, which showed just how deep the comment hit. From that day forward, Dolph didn't argue, didn't clap back, didn't chase drama. He just erased Thompson from his world completely. This feud never grew into a headline, but it's the one Dolph carries the quietest and the longest, and that says everything about how real it was for him. So, out of those 5 names, which ones shocked you the most? Do you think Dolph was right to cut them off for good? Let me know in the comments. And if you want more untold Hollywood drama and behind-the-scenes rivalries, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. There's a lot more coming.